Arsenal have to sell in the summer if they want to go on and become one of the elite clubs in Europe. Of course, there's players that need to go anyway, like Elneny and Cedric Soares. But there's players from the first squad also that need to be moved along. And in this video, we'll probably be having some uncomfortable discussions. Maybe players that you don't want to lose. Maybe players that I don't want to lose. But that's exactly what I want to make this, a discussion. So let me know your thoughts on all the players that you believe we need to sell, or the players you believe we need to keep. You know, the first player we're going to be talking about is a player that I don't really want to sell, and that's Thomas Partey. But given what's going on with Thomas Partey, we may have no choice. But before we talk about Thomas Partey, do me a favour, just give me a thumbs up on this video just to let me know that you like this kind of content. So Thomas Partey, what do we do with this player? An incredibly talented player who's not even that old. You know, he's only 30 years old. But just look at his injury record. That's what's holding him back. There hasn't been a season for Arsenal where Thomas Partey hasn't been out at least twice with an injury. And on 2 occasions, he's missed more than 5 months. So what do you do with a player like that? Because you can't depend on Thomas Partey. Yes, when he's available, he's one of the best CDMs in the Premier League. We know this. We saw the discussions last season. We saw the comparisons between Rodri and Thomas Partey. We know how good Thomas Partey's ability is. We know how he can dictate a game. We know how good he is at defending. We know how good he is at passing. But can you rely on a player who's only available for sometimes not even half of the season? Look, I would love nothing more than Thomas Partey to come back from his latest injury, be reintegrated back into the first squad and not miss a game. I'd keep him for about 3 seasons because he is only 30. This isn't a 35-year-old. Thomas Partey is only 30 years old and the ability he has is top. But with his injury record, you might have to make a decision. You might have to look at it and say, Thomas Partey, we may not even get a player that's quite as good as you. There are players out there that Arsenal can go for. Players like Zubimendi, who are unbelievable talents. Thomas Partey is the guy that Arsenal need. You know, he's athletic, he's quick, strong, reads the game well, passes well, can dictate play, one touch, playing between the defenders and then move and then progressing the ball forward. Thomas Partey can do it all. It's just that injury record. You know, you might have to sell Thomas Partey. If I was being asked a question now, do Arsenal have to sell Thomas Partey? I would say I don't want to, but probably yes. You know, like I said, look at the injury record. But let me know your thoughts on Thomas Partey. If you was given the decision right now, if Mikel Arteta come up to you and said, listen, we have to make a decision on Thomas Partey. Do we sell him or do we keep him? Let me know. The second player I want to talk about is Jorginho. Now, let's not forget, this is a player who on all the Arsenal fan channels, on all media outlets, people have been saying he's probably not the player Arsenal need. Arsenal should move him on. But, you know, look at the performances Jorginho has put in recently. And this isn't a player who's always out with injury, by the way. This is a player who's readily available most of the time. This isn't a player who's going to cause disruption in the dressing room. And in terms of how this player plays, perfect for what Arsenal need. Arsenal play with a defensive player, and if you can put a Jorginho next to him, a person who we know can dictate play. Like, even in that last game, his one-touch passing ability, all you got to do is look at the stats. If you're looking at average touch per player before they move the ball on, Jorginho's was the lowest in the whole squad with 1.06. That means he was touching the ball one time before moving it on. And he had like the highest pass completion rate in the whole team. Jorginho dictated that game from start to finish. Jorginho progressed the ball perfectly. You know, he doesn't hold on to the ball too long, so you're never in danger, you know, of Jorginho being out of the game or of Jorginho being shut down because he touches the ball, turns away, pivots and passes the ball. One touch pass. It sounds so simple, but Jorginho has mastered it. And that allows other players to find positions. That allows us to break lines. That allows us to push further up the pitch in a way that not many players in the Arsenal squad can offer us. Not only that, look at the experience Jorginho has. He is 32 years old, but look at the experience that comes with that. We know he's won the Champions League. This is a player I think Arsenal can rely on going forward. I think, you know, if you asked me maybe 3-4 months ago when he wasn't getting all that much game time, I probably would have said, okay, yeah, let's look at moving Jorginho on. I mean, you need to be giving me another option of someone coming in who can play that role as well as Jorginho. And I think there are players that can do that. Like I said, Zubimendi for me would be the guy that I go out there and get. But is that in replacement of Jorginho or is that in replacement of Partey? I don't think you need to lose both of those players. Because there's other players that we'll get into on this list that may not make the cut as well. You know, we need to be having discussions about some of these fringe players. And some of these fringe players can raise money. You know, a lot of them are homegrown English talents. So their price may be slightly higher just for that reason. We'll get into some of them. Emile Smith-Rowe. Can you see Emile Smith-Rowe breaking into this first team and really making an impact? Because as of yet, he hasn't been able to. And if he does, where does he play? He's obviously not a holding midfielder, so that's out of the question. The only role that is possible for him to play is number 8. Does he have the ability to play number 8 and dictate games like a Jorginho? You let me know. Number 10, Odegaard. He's probably not going to get much success in that position. And then you've got the 2 wing positions. Where does he fit in? But not only Smith-Rowe, Fabio Viera. Has he run his course now at the club? Is it time to move Fabio Viera on? When Fabio Viera first signed for Arsenal, there was a buzz about Fabio Viera. This was a player who won player of the tournament at Euros under 21 or under 23s, whatever it was. So this is a player that was brought in with good calibre. It was an unexpected signing, but there was a buzz about Fabio Viera. He was slightly lightweight, but the technical ability he did have and still possesses, you know, can't be doubted. But where do you see him breaking into this first team? And do you need players like that? Of course, you're going to need a squad. But is this player good enough to be a squad player for Arsenal? I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. You know, how many years do you give him before you make the decision of, right, maybe this isn't the right guy. Maybe we do need to move him on. Not even just Fabio Viera. Eddie Nketiah, what do you do there? In my opinion, you sell Eddie Nketiah. You know, say if you can raise 30 million for Eddie Nketiah, you put that towards your striker. And if you need to raise more money, well, then you've got Aaron Ramsdale. What do you do with Aaron Ramsdale? We know the discussion that's been said about Aaron Ramsdale. Loads of us would have made that change. The change has happened, and we're not really talking about it. So what does that say? Does that mean Mikel Arteta was right? We don't know, because we haven't seen Ramsdale play this season. But in terms of how Ray is getting on, he's actually doing well. So do you let that slide? Do you let Ramsdale now move out of the club and go and further his career and hopefully break into that England squad setup that I do believe he has the ability to do? I do believe Aaron Ramsdale is England's best goalkeeper. But he's not going to get a chance to show that at Arsenal. So do you sell Ramsdale for 25, 35 million? That will raise money. And then we're left with the question of Reiss Nelson. In my opinion, Reiss Nelson is actually a decent squad player. But there's something to bear in mind for Reiss Nelson. If you keep hold of Reiss Nelson, are you hindering the opportunities of Ethan Nwaneri, for example? A player who was wanted by so many top clubs around Europe. His situation was being monitored. He signed a new deal in the end, so everything's fine. But does keeping Reiss Nelson hold back Nwaneri from breaking into that first team? Does it hold back his opportunities of being able to be given a chance in some first team or some cup games for Arsenal? So that's a decision Mikel Arteta needs to make. Is Reiss Nelson the guy, or is Nwaneri the guy? Can they both be played together? Listen, like I said, you need a squad, so it's possible, of course. But if you do sell Reiss Nelson, that could, again, be another 20 or 30 million pounds that you could raise and put it towards a Zubimendi if you need it, or another striker, or another winger maybe. And Arsenal have been so good in the transfer market, not only under Mikel Arteta, but previously before that as well. Of course, there's been some signings that haven't worked out, but look at the signings Arsenal have made. Trossard, 23 million. Gabriel Magalhaes, 27 million. You know, Saliba, 30 million, whatever it was. Arsenal do operate well in the transfer market. So if you sell a Smith-Rowe, Nketiah, Ramsdale, Nelson, and maybe even a Viera, they're probably all going to garner the same fee, between 20 and maybe 40 million pound. Can you go into the European market and find a higher quality player with a higher ceiling for a similar fee? And that's what Arsenal need to look at. I think there's opportunities in this squad to release some of these players and maybe bring in better players. If you're asking me what players would I sell in the summer transfer window, I would tell you Thomas Partey, but only under one condition. We either get a world-class player or a player who has the ability to get there, like a Zubimendi. Even an Onana from Everton. If you're saying, do we sell Thomas Partey and then maybe give lokonga a chance or something like that, then no, I wouldn't do it, of course. If you're getting rid of Thomas Partey, you need to bring in a player who's as good as Thomas Partey, but maybe a younger version who's less injury-prone. Jorginho, I give Jorginho at least another year. Jorginho has now earned that, so give Jorginho another year. Smith-Rowe, sell Smith Rowe. If we can get, like I said, 30-40 million pound for Smith Rowe and put that towards another player, better striker, better winger, better central midfielder, do that. Fabio Viera, the same. In my opinion, sell Fabio Viera. Nketiah, sell Nketiah. Put that money towards that killer striker that we need. Aaron Ramsdale. Now, I like Aaron Ramsdale, so that's a tough one for me to say. I would love Aaron Ramsdale to stay as Arsenal's second choice goalkeeper, but is that me being a bit selfish? Is that me wanting Aaron Ramsdale because not only is he a good keeper, but because I like him? Does Aaron Ramsdale need to move on for the furtherance of his career? Probably. And then Reiss Nelson. I don't know about that because Reiss Nelson does have ability. Reiss Nelson was one of the star players in the youth setup when he was playing in it. Reiss Nelson was probably looked at as one of the guys who has the highest ceiling, who can go on, break into the first team and be a regular first team player. It hasn't worked out that way. Football doesn't always work out that way. Reiss Nelson does have the ability, but I would also like to see Nwaneri in the next year or so start being introduced into this first team more and more often. Let me know your thoughts. Do you believe Smith Rowe needs to be sold? Fabio Viera, Thomas Partey, Jorginho. Let me know your thoughts on the players we've discussed in this video. Thanks so much to everyone for watching and listening. But before you go, do me the favour of just giving this video a thumbs up. Just hit like and subscribe, and I'll speak to you all in tomorrow's video. Gooners, have a good day.